Hello, welcome back for another episode of Hunter Tuned. Today we are going to be working on my Civic hatchback with a B20 VTEC turbo. If you guys are not familiar with this car, you should be because it's all over my channel. But this is my 96 Civic EK hatchback, and I recently went to the track and it broke something in the driveline. I'm not exactly sure what broke. It could be something in the transmission, like the differential, or it could be as simple as an axle. I'm not 100% sure. I'm hoping it's just an axle, but like I said, it could be something more serious. I've never actually broken a B-Series differential, and the last time I went to the track and I snapped an axle, I thought it was the differential as well, until I tore out the intermediate shaft and it was actually snapped on the intermediate shaft, like inside the trans where I couldn't see it. So I'm hoping it's something like that again. I could be wrong, could be something in the transmission. Oh well, we'll tear it apart, find out. But this car's been really good other than that. And like I said, kind of coming to the conclusion where I don't think I'm going to put the big 24.5-inch slicks on it anymore. If anything, I may get a set of 23-inch slicks for it because I feel like it's just a lot easier on driveline parts having a little bit smaller diameter tire. The bigger diameter tire you put on these things, the more stress you're going to put on pretty much everything. And for the power this thing's at, I really don't think it needs the big 24.5-inch tire. I just went with, you know, the big tire right away. But I feel like a 23-inch, like, you know, drag slick or drag, like an ET Street drag radial would do just fine on this setup. So we might be picking up a new set of slicks for it eventually. But like I said, for the meantime, I think I'm going to keep the street tires on it. And you guys should really comment down below and tell my girlfriend to race this car. I want to leave it on street tires, leave the street tune on it, so it's got like 3 pounds in second gear, 10 in third, and like 15 in fourth gear. So it's got boost by gear and it hooks up on the street tires. And I kind of want her to race this car, and then I'll race my Mustang. So I think that'd be really fun. She could kind of get into drag racing a little bit and, you know, be more of part of what I love to do. So anyways, in other news, before we take the transmission apart and take the hatch apart, I wanted to kind of show you guys what I picked up. I actually ended up selling the Del Sol. I'm sorry, not sorry. I wanted to build the car. Me and the girlfriend kind of wanted to build the car, but the amount of money that, you know, we had into it and what we wanted to do to it, you know, it just sucks because with Hondas and stuff, they're kind of getting a little bit more expensive to build nowadays. And, you know, I just didn't really think that I don't know, I just wasn't really feeling the Del Sol for some reason. I just wasn't. I'm sorry, Christian from Honda Vlogs. I'm really sorry. But, you know, it is what it is. It's just kind of something me personally, and, you know, financially, it was a good come up for me. I mean, I had literally $500 into that fucking car, and I sold it for, you know, like 5 or 6 times that. So I'm not complaining whatsoever. I'm very happy that the car is gone, and I have some money in my pocket so we can continue to, you know, buy and sell stuff to try to raise some money for the dyno. So I did end up getting a screaming deal on a motorcycle. Y'all know that I bought this Triumph. This is a Triumph. I don't know if it's a Daytona. I think it's just a Spirit, a Triumph Spirit or Sprint or whatever they're called. RS 955i. It could be a Daytona, but the gauge cluster says it's a you know, Sprint or Spirit, and it doesn't say Daytona anywhere on the bike. And I actually had a guy look at this thing today, and he's like, oh, you know, you sure it's a Daytona? And I'm like, I have no idea. So the Triumph here runs good and stuff. It's just not really my style bike. It's just not my style. And don't really, I mean, it's comfy to ride and whatnot, but it's just not fast enough and not really my style, like I said. So I'm actually selling this. I also did a bunch of trading and stuff to get this bike. I bought a Yamaha V-Star like a month ago, and then I traded it up for a Honda ST1100, and I traded up again for this Triumph. So I'm selling the Triumph for cash, hopefully, and we'll be getting rid of the Triumph to get a little bit more money rolling in. And then I also, today, I picked up this is a 2002 Yamaha R1. I don't know if you guys can see it. It might be a little bit dark out. But this is my new, to me, 2002 Yamaha R1. It's got a bunch of goodies on it. It's got a Yoshimura exhaust. It has, you know, different grips and levers, adjustable, unbreakable levers. It has aftermarket chain sprockets, lowering link, and like different foot pegs. It's got a different fairing kit on it, a little bit different fairing kit on the front. And yeah, this thing, it's got a lot of miles on it, but for what I paid, I can't complain at all, guys. So yeah, this thing is super rad, super rad, super rad. I got a guy actually coming to pick this jet ski up too tomorrow, the one out in the yard over there. Picking the jet ski up because I was gonna put a motor in it. I tore the motor out of it in one of the last videos, and honestly, for the amount of money I'm going to make on the ski, I'm kind of just gonna cut my losses and just sell it as a, you know, a roller, as Honda people would say, without a motor or anything like that. And I feel like I'll be just fine selling it like that, and you know, I'll still be kind of in the up and up, you know, just selling it that way. So I'm selling that, and then still got to sell my Mazda. I'm working on selling a bunch of stuff right now. And I do this periodically where I'll just buy a bunch of stuff, and then I'll sell a bunch of stuff, and then I'll sell more stuff, and then I'll buy more stuff and whatever. But it's kind of good doing it this way and buying other stuff instead of buying and selling like these kind of cars, because I do spend a lot of time building these cars, and although I make money on every single one I build, sometimes it's just nice to have a car that works and have a car that, you know, whatever, because realistically, if I sold this Honda, I'd go buy another one and I'd build it again and I'd do the same thing. So it'd kind of just be nice just to keep this one. It's super clean. You know, I really haven't had any clean Hondas, so this is one of my cleanest Hondas I've ever owned. So I'd probably just keep it like this, you know, whatever. So yeah, I got a pretty fancy hairdo going on because we were out on the jet skis. I think I'm actually going to take a couple GoPro clips of us out on the jet skis tomorrow. We might go out again. I think that'd be kind of cool just to like add in a little like 30 seconds or a minute worth of like jet ski footage. I think that'd be kind of cool. And maybe some like riding footage on the motorcycles. That would kind of be cool too, I think. I bought that. I got a story quick before we move on to the transmission. I know I talk a fucking lot, guys. I know I talk a lot. It's just what I like to do. I like to sit here and talk to the camera and walk around and pace and fucking whatever. But anyways, so this R1 I bought, the guy posted it, and I tried to just trade him for the Triumph. And he's like, ah, no, dude, I just really need the cash. I'm really strapped right now. I need money for bills, etc. So I'm like, all right, dude, well, let me come check it out. So I came and checked the bike out, and he's like, hey, it's got issues, you know, and that's right up my alley. I love buying cars, and I love buying bikes with issues because I like to tinker with shit, and I like to work on stuff and, you know, make it work and make it tick, because that's just what I'm about. But anyway, so I went and looked at the bike, and the guy said that it had an idle problem, and he said the bike would like die when you came up to a stoplight. And I'm like, oh, it might be as simple as a idle adjustment. And it being a 2002, I said, okay, well, it's probably carbureted, so the carburetors might need to be cleaned and synced, and then maybe adjust the idle. So I go look at this fucking bike, and he turns the key forward, starts it up, and I hear a fuel pump, and I'm like, this isn't fuel injected? And he's like, yeah, 2002, they were fuel injected. I thought the, you know, the leader bikes for like Yamaha and Kawasaki and all that, they didn't go to fuel injection until like 03. But I was mistakenly wrong. 02 is fuel injected. So I was like, okay, this opens up a whole nother can of worms and a whole nother resale value for this bike. Being fuel injected, it's more desirable, obviously, than a carbureted bike. And then whatever, but his ad was really vague. He's like, oh yeah, R1 has idle problem, call blah blah blah. Perfect. No info, doesn't get a lot of people interested. So I'm like, okay, well, let me test drive the bike. And I test drove it, and sure shit, it kept dying. Like every time you lifted off the gas, the bike would die. And I kind of just rode it around this block, and I got into it a little bit, and the clutch slipped. And I'm like, ah, dude, this thing, you know, it's gonna need a clutch. and it's going to need, you know, some sort of tuning maybe with the computer that's in the bike, if it's got a power commander or what it's got. I have the power commander software, and I've tuned a few motorcycles before, but I was just like, you know, it might take some money or some work to get, you know, it going. But I wasn't worried about the clutch. Clutch is like $70, not a big deal. I could replace that. And the idle issue, I was still up in the air about. So I offered him what I felt comfortable paying him, and he accepted it. And all I can say is I got a fucking steal. I got a fucking steal on that bike. Like literally, yeah, I got a really good deal. I don't like to like say what I paid for shit on a lot of stuff, because some people might just get salty that I'm like trying to buy stuff cheap and then flip it and whatever. So I don't really like talking about it. But anyways, got a good deal on the bike, and I rode it home, and the whole way home, bike never died. Never died, ran great, and I never had any issues. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. It was dying on the test drive, now it's not. I put about 60 to 70 miles on the bike. Nothing. No issues. Bike wasn't dying. It was just running good. Clutch was still slipping on the other hand. So just for the fuck of it, I pulled in the garage and I adjusted the clutch. Because when I first played with the clutch, it had no free play. Like it wasn't disengaging fully. And I literally got a 12mm wrench, adjusted the clutch cable, and the bike is fucking mint. Literally, like, I put like another 50 miles on after all that, and this fucking bike is an animal. It's fast. I love leader bikes, guys. I love a leader bike. They are something else. They are something else. If you haven't ridden a motorcycle, that's a fucking adrenaline rush right there. It just sucks, like, you know, an R1 or something like that, because they're not really comfy, and especially if you want to have two people on it, it's not the bike for you. That's kind of the real reason I want to get a Hayabusa, is because the Busa has like a better seating position. They're comfier, and they have plenty of horsepower, and also would be comfier for like my girlfriend to ride on the back of or whatever. But I mean, my girlfriend would not be able to ride on the back of this thing. It just would be very uncomfortable, etc., etc. But yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed story time. We will get to work on the hatch now. All right, guys, so I got the car jacked up in the air, got the tires ripped off, and pretty much everything on the underside of the car done. Like I said, the tires are off, axles are out. When I take the axles out, I'm just going to kind of go over some of this basic stuff with you guys quick. I feel like sometimes I just breeze through this and I don't actually cover any of it. But there is some of this stuff that's already been covered, but whatever. Okay, so when I pull axles out of Hondas, I usually just pop the lower ball joint, the shock bolt, and the tie rod end, so I can swing all this out of the way, and then I push down on the control arm and swing the shock around it so I can fit the axle out. And on the driver's side, I usually pull the intermediate shaft with the axle, just pull the 314 mil bolts and pull it all out as one unit, because all of it needs to come out anyways. And pretty much same thing over here. This side I have to actually take my traction bar off as well in order to get the transmission completely out, because the traction bar kind of blocks the transmission from actually coming down all the way. But yeah, so also I ended up pulling the shift linkage off and the two 19mm bolts that go on the T-bracket. So I already got all that stuff done. Quick tip for the bitch pin, or the shift linkage, whatever, the little pin that goes through the shift linkage. If you do not have the specific size punch, you can actually just use like a 12mm exhaust bolt, like the M8x125 thread. One of those bolts works fucking mint, just to use it as a punch, to punch the bitch pin out. Because yeah, I've been in that situation where I don't have a punch or a properly sized punch, and you end up fucking the bitch pin up and whatever. So 12mm bolt, when you're in a pinch, works great. So now I'm gonna move on to the stuff on the top. So I gotta pull the starter off the slave cylinder. So the starter, I got a couple wires here. We're gonna have the activation switch here, or the starter signal switch that just unplugs. It's a spade connector. And then I got a 12mm or 13mm bolt here, or nut. And I got a couple connections here because my battery's in the trunk, and I use the starter as a junction box to hook up the fuse box and the main power from the battery. they are hooked together there. So once the connections are off of there, two 14mm bolts on the starter, pull that guy out. We got the reverse lights right here, so we'll just unplug that. I have a ground on here, 10mm bolt that goes to the transmission bracket there, pull that off, and then two 12mm bolts on the slave cylinder. I usually just pull the two bolts off the slave and then I just lay it off to the side. That way you don't have to re-bleed the system, or at least I don't re-bleed it, and it works just fine. So yeah, I just pull the slave cylinder off, and then after that, all we got to do is pull off the transmission mount and then the bell housing bolts, and we're all done. So I'll pick back up when the transmission's out of the car, and we can tear that down, see what went wrong. All right, guys, so got the transmission out of the car, and now I'm just starting the process of taking the transmission apart. Basic stuff I'm just taking off right away, like the throw-out bearing and the clutch fork, which is propping the transmission up right now. That thing just slides onto a little, you know, like a little clip thing that is a little rod that sticks out of the transmission. Just push it and it comes right off. And then this guy is the speed sensor, 110mm bolt on that. And this is the reverse light sensor. So that's a 19mm nut there. So we got that off. And we also took out the bolt for reverse. This is a 14mm bolt located on the transmission up here. We yanked that out. And now we're going to take out 12mm bolts right here and here. These are the D10 springs and balls. And then once those two are out, we can remove the 1/2-inch plug right here, which gives us access to the snap ring on the counter shaft. And then we have the 12mm bolts around the perimeter of the case. This little bracket thing needs to come off, and then we can pry up on the transmission while opening the snap ring on the counter shaft here, and then just kind of pry it and it'll pop right apart. And we'll pick up after we get the case split open and see what went wrong with this transmission. Okay, so now that the transmission case is removed, I removed the input and counter shafts, shift forks, reverse gear, shift selector, all that kind of stuff. And to my surprise, just like I kind of expected, this differential is completely toasted. There's a bunch of metal that kind of danced around in the transmission. The case is still good, thankfully, but it did chew up like this corner right here. There's some markings. There's a bunch of chunks of metal in here, you know, from the differential, you know, exploding. But, you know, that's all what I kind of expected. There's a shitload of metal shavings down in here, like big chunks that are kind of just hanging out. And here is our culprit. This is the differential. So I'll spin it around if it'll grab enough to spin it around. Well, you can see on this corner here, let me get this thing in the light. So that spider gear is completely toasted. Flip it around, you know, there's more busted teeth on the differential there. Yeah, she's fucked. Good thing I have a few spares. Yeah, so we're just gonna throw another stock one back in it, and probably not run the 24.5-inch tires for a little while, and just run street tires for the time being, because that's kind of what this car is. It's a street car. So anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna pick up on another video tomorrow or the next day, and I'll get the hatch back up and rolling. I'm gonna call it a night for today. Got a lot of stuff done today other than the hatch and whatnot, so just figured I'd do this before I went to bed. Pull the tranny out, get it all disassembled, make sure it's the differential that went bad, and it is. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna get this thing back together tomorrow, and yeah, so we will see you guys for another video hopefully soon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Please like, comment, subscribe. I feel like I beg you guys to like, comment, and subscribe, but whatever, you can do what you want. It just kind of helps me out if you do. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of the video, and we will see you in the next one. Have a good night.